I've always liked the Yoshi games. I do enjoy Mario games, but Yoshi's my favorite character of the franchise, and I really enjoy games like Yoshi's Island and Yoshi's Woolly World. In all honesty, I hope that Super Nintendo games come to the Nintendo Switch Online service soon because I really want to play Yoshi's Island again, the original. But in the meantime, a brand new Yoshi game's come out with an aesthetic that really reminds me of Little Big Planet. So, here is my review of Yoshi's Crafted World for the Nintendo Switch. This story revolves around the Yoshis and what is called the Sun Dreamstone, or the Yoshi's version of the Dragon Balls. At least Team 4-Star seems to think so. It's a tablet that contains 5 gems, and when those gems are collected, they grant your wishes and dreams. But one day, the Yoshis are attacked by Kamek and Baby Bowser, resulting in all of the gems being scattered across the different worlds. The Yoshis then race against Bowser, trying to get the gems back before he does. This game has the normal cutesy charm the Yoshi games do, but one thing I really like that changes things up are dialogue choices. Whenever you run into Bowser and Kamek, you get to take sides in each conversation. Sometimes you find them fighting with one another, and choosing Bowser's side of each argument leads to a very funny little interaction between you, him, and Kamek. Granted, you still fight them as the villains, but it's cute to see them in little situations where they're not always 100% against you. When it comes to gameplay, Yoshi's Crafted World is a side-scrolling platformer with combat elements and some 2.5D elements thrown into the mix. As you play through the game, you're going to be going through side-scrolling levels, eating enemies and throwing eggs at them, but with a little more depth than normal with a second plane you can access during certain parts of the stages. This can also be played in multiplayer. While everything in Yoshi's Crafted World can be tackled solo, you can have 2 Yoshis on screen to help, especially with the later post-game levels. Progression in this game is very similar to previous titles, but a few things have been switched up and made a little bit different. First is how the flower collectibles and coins work. You have a health gauge in this game and checkpoints, so coins aren't used to gain more lives once you get 100 of them. They're actually a currency that you can use outside of the levels to play a minigame to get special costumes that you can equip through the levels, so you look a little bit different and have a little bit more defense. There are also a lot of these. Every single world has this minigame with its own unique costumes that you can get based off of that world's environments and enemies. But the collectible flowers are a little bit more important this time. Every world is blocked by an NPC who requires a certain number of flowers before they'll let you in. This encourages you to do a lot more exploration during the stages so you can get as many flowers as possible. Though the game does make it pretty easy to get more flowers. You can play through a stage normally and get flowers, then you can go through a stage in reverse mode and gain more flowers. Plus the game's got a big side quest system where NPCs will give you requests one at a time to go into certain stages and find objects or structures in the background to bring back for them. This adds a lot more longevity to the game because there's a lot of side content you can do, but there's a big flaw in this system. Requests can only be done one at a time. You can't do more than one at once, and the next one doesn't unlock until the first one is done. The problem here is that a lot of these requests take place in the same stage. So you go into a stage to fulfill one request, come back, get your reward, and then you go right back into that same stage and do another request all over again. This tied with the fact that the further you go into the game, the more requests each world will have. It really just gets tiresome and repetitive when you have all of these requests that you could do all at once, but you can't because the game won't let you. But in these requests, you're looking for stuff in the background, and that adds a lot to the game's depth, so let's talk about gameplay and the visual depth of this game's stages. This is a side-scroller, but it's a 2.5D side-scroller. Like Little Big Planet, and I believe one of the Kirby games also had this. There are 2 planes that you can navigate, one in the front of the stage and one a little bit farther back. Not only that, but almost everything in the background you can actually see depth for and can interact with. When you throw eggs in this game, it's not just throw it left or right. You can throw it towards the screen, away from the screen, really far back in the background. And this is one thing I really like about the game, because not only does this game have really in-depth backgrounds, but you can actually interact with all of them. Sure, there are a lot of platformers and games that have in-depth backgrounds, but not that many that you can directly interact with. Now, outside of this, it's the same song and dance as pretty much every Yoshi game before it. You can jump on enemies, you can eat enemies to turn them into eggs, and you can throw eggs at enemies or at weak points for bosses. Admittedly, the formula hasn't changed that much in its core, but I think all of these little changes like the 2.5D interaction and the costumes make it feel different enough to not just feel like a carbon copy of the last Yoshi game. However, when all of this comes together, even with all of the added content with the requests, you're still not getting a hugely long experience. When I went through the game, I did all of the worlds, and I did about 3 requests for each world, but not all of them, and I cleared the game in around 10 hours. Even counting the 4 post-game stages, I don't think I spent more than maybe 12 or 13 hours on this game. Granted, this is a bit lengthy for a Mario platformer, but not for a fully priced $60 game. Now let's dive into presentation, which is one of the most charming and most flawed parts of this game. Everything in this world is made of arts and crafts, and that aesthetic is really cute and really charming. Yoshi's made out of it, all of the bosses are made out of it. It's really cute to see all of these household items making up literally this entire world. The only problem with this is the fact that the game's a bit on the blurry side. When you got it in docked mode, the blur isn't really that bad outside of stuff that's really far away from the camera, but when you go into handheld mode, a lot more of the stuff becomes blurry, including the character models. Now, it doesn't ruin the charm of the game, but it is a bit jarring, especially when you come from the last side-scrolling Mario game, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, which looks so crisp and clear compared to this. But that's all I've got to criticize about graphics and performance. The game runs at a really nice frame rate and I've never had it crash, so it's definitely optimized well. Now let's get into battery life, which wasn't as high as I was expecting, at least on high settings. Yoshi's Crafted World has a battery range of 2 hours and 8 minutes on high settings, up to 3 hours and 12 minutes on low settings. Now in conclusion, Yoshi's Crafted World uses the old formula but adds just enough new stuff to make it not seem like a total carbon copy of its predecessors. Granted, the request system does get pretty repetitive over time, and the visual presentation is a little on the blurry side. But if you're a fan of Yoshi games and want a new one on the go, this is definitely a fun one to choose. Reviews to Go rates Yoshi's Crafted World for the Nintendo Switch an 8 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thanks for watching and have a great day.